Hi everyone. So this is kind of a little bit of a continuation video of the other videos I posted regarding Wuthering Heights, but it is a separate topic by itself related to spirituality and reincarnation and how the twin flame journey unfolds or possibly can unfold for someone, or how a higher level ascension journey unfolds for someone in their life. So, in the case of Wuthering Heights, in the first video that I made, I have given the hypothesis that it's possible that Kathy Linton and not Ernest Henshaw, but Hareton Unshaw, these two were actually possibly twin flames because of the kind of experience they faced in the storyline of Wuthering Heights. But whether they are actually twin flames, that thing will be clarified not in their lifetime as Kathy and Kathy and Hareton. I don't know why I keep saying Ernest Earnshaw. Maybe there's something I have to discuss about someone named Ernest, which I will do possibly in another video. But because universe sometimes makes me make these mistakes to examine something about the storylines possibly. But so with Hareton Earnshaw, when Hareton and Kathy were brought together as a result of Heathcliff's cruelty towards them and what he did to their parents, that was a common goal that they shared as a soul, that their parents were also destroyed partly directly and indirectly by Heathcliff. Whether they understood that journey in that lifetime or not, that is part of one of the lessons they would have to navigate through their life even after Heathcliff's death, because of their own soul's journey related to what they experienced in the life with Heathcliff, in the life with their parents, in the life before Heathcliff was present in their life, in the life when Heathcliff was absent in their life, in the lifetime when Heathcliff was always consistently present. All of these were, Heathcliff was one aspect of element related to their love journey towards each other. And if Heathcliff was not there, whether they would have gravitated towards each other, that is also another question they would have to explore. In order to understand, are they really twin flames of each other, or are they really high level soulmates of each other? Because they were definitely either twin flames or high level soulmates, then only you get to navigate this heavy karma induced difficult life journey and get a person as a supportive life partner at that time. Because there's a heavy karma you had to break, there was a heavy karma you had to work through, there was a karma related to Heathcliff that they had to work through jointly, and that's why they were gravitated towards each other and they ended up marrying each other in that book story. So, and while this is a fictional story, understand that many fictional stories have realities basis on them. Really deep fictional stories have a lot of reality in it, has a lot of elements of reality in it that could have unfolded for one person or multiple persons with some similar things going on in their life. Whether they will become a person like Kathy or Hareton is very different for different individual. Like even if you had same circumstances as what was presented in the story of Wuthering Heights, each of us has come here to experience something slightly different, has a slightly different higher purpose in our soul's journey that we have to navigate. And depending on our higher purpose and also our own free will that God lets us execute when we are on earth, all of it determines how the quality of our life experience will be, our soul's journey will be, what deeper lessons we will learn, what we may not learn at that time. So when the density was higher and darkness was higher for Heathcliff, he couldn't learn any of the quality of life lessons. But whether he has the potential to now learn it on earth in a next lifetime, he will get a chance, that's why, in the next lifetime to learn. If he realizes, like if you have ever studied other spirituality teachers' teachings, understand that one part of spirituality also says that after you pass away from earth, you go through a life review of what your soul experienced as that body in that lifetime. So if Heathcliff passes away, his soul will now get a lifetime review on what he did and where are in the first 3 videos that I have made about Wuthering Heights, what was he doing wrong, many elements of what was going darker in the experience with Heathcliff. Some of them I have discussed, not everything, but many of the experiences I have discussed in that. And when you read the book only, many of us will pick up on this about Wuthering Heights. So these darkness related choices that Heathcliff made in the storyline, that you are picking up on, that I may not explore yet in this videos, but other people can also pick it up from the storyline depending on their personal journey, right? So when we are picking it up, and he also, when he is reviewing his own life, where as a soul now he is reviewing it, he understands where, he will understand at that time, he can develop this understanding of where his soul was making certain choices that was not like a greatest good choice, or was a more harmful choice than a easier choice. There was a easier alternative he could have chosen. It may not seem easy to him at that point of time to execute that choice, but if he had taken the time to reflect, pause, rest, think deeply about his pain, allow the pain to teach him the lesson that the pain was supposed to teach him, and just get the lesson out of it rather than getting the darkness out of it, then he could have had the more lighter experiences related to that same darkness that had unfolded in his life. So once he does this life review, every soul gets a chance again to repeat a life on earth, which is what the reincarnation cycle that emerges for many souls. That reincarnation cycle emerges because you want to learn more the lesson that earthly life is meant to teach you. Earthly life has a purpose. Earthly life has a higher spiritual purpose that we forget about when we are born, because part of that purpose is to have a journey of earthly life on earth, and while we are experiencing the journey, we learn that lesson. Because if anyone has some hobby that they love to do, if you have a hobby related to carpentry, if you have a hobby related to painting, if you have a hobby related to knitting, whatever is your personal hobby, music, dance, listening to music, whatever is your hobby, when you are doing that hobby, you understand deeply that hobby. When you make mistakes, when you do certain things really well, when you take the effort, and after having made a mistake you want to improve on your mistake, that's how you learn that lesson really well, right? And things that, why did Heathcliff's dark experience sit with me, even though only one time or two times maximum, I think two times I've read the book. In the two times that I have read the book, the darkness of Heathcliff's experience and the pain of his experience stuck a lot with me. That was the journey that, because he was the main character, that was the journey we were all meant to learn, because it was designed like that, that he and Catherine Earnshaw's experience would be the main experience of the book. Whereas even though Kathy Linton is hearing and listening to the tale, she's the kind of like the indirect narrator of the tale, and Kathy is also one of the main characters, but she gets relegated to the background because her pain was not discovered in the story or deeply delved into in the story, though she also had a lot of pain. Hareton also had a lot of pain and suffering, and their journey was not explored because they were the side characters. So now if anyone wants to write like a book inspired by Wuthering Heights about Kathy and Hareton, they could do that. And I'm essentially in this video kind of talking about an alternate life that Kathy and Linton, or Hareton and even Linton, they all have to now go through in the next life, depending on what had transpired in their journey with Heathcliff. There's also something hidden in the whole entire narrative of Wuthering Heights, which very few people will pick up, is a narrative thread that is very, very covertly hidden. Because also understand, when Emily Bronte wrote this story, she either wrote it as knowing the story. Anytime a writer writes a story, because I like writing stories, and according to me, this is the way a writer writes a story, according to what I have understood about writing and what I have perceived others who are really good writers, how they write. This is partly like an intuitive thing and a logical thing that I understand about writing or telling stories, is that when we write a story or tell a story, we are writing or telling a story, either our own personal life's journey we are writing in a story, but we don't want to reveal everything that we went through, so we are writing it in a form that part of what we are going through is written in the story. So it's like partly fictional, partly our own experience that we are writing in that story. And sometimes we are also writing not just ours, like the deeper a writer you are, at the first level when you are writing possibly just about yourself. Then as you improve more and more in being a writer, or either about yourself or about the things you observe. So like when I write, I do write not stories, but whatever I write about in different parts of, even in this community post, I have written certain topics, and other places I've written on certain topics. So in these different social media platforms which I use for writing different things, in each of those platforms, using the narrative of that platform only I write. So in Facebook you can write about social things, observational things, video related inspired things, writing related inspired things. On Instagram you can write photography and music related inspired things, or movie related inspired things, and shorter discussions can be done. On LinkedIn you can write about professional related experiences. In YouTube you can do all of them depending on what you want to do, right? So you have a different way of exploring these things in different mediums, and these are the tools I use, so that's why I know these apps well. There are possibly other millions of apps like TikTok, people explore video related stuff, I think. So all these things, but I have never used TikTok, so I will not talk about TikTok. So anyway, so when we are exploring something, so with a writer, when you're becoming more and more evolved as a writer, initially it might be just your experience or something you've observed that you're writing about. So you will be writing about yourself and other people you know. But slowly, it's not simply about you and other people you know. It can also be about strangers that you can write about. You can also write about, when you're writing a big novel, the writer who is writing a big novel is either getting guided by the universe to write someone's storyline. So in, case of Valmiki's Ramayan was not experienced by Valmiki himself, but Ramayan was experienced by someone or understood by someone very deeply, and they made Valmiki write the story. So you are writing the story in the form, you're writing something that was guided to you. So that guidance that is coming to you, it can be like a spiritual guidance that can come. For some people it comes in the form of vision, like those who are spiritually elevating, you get something called clairvoyance. So when you get clairvoyance, or you get clairvoyant dreams, in the form of clairvoyance and clairvoyant dreams, you will get all these images about someone or stories about someone that you can then start writing about them, right? So while you're doing that, you're narrating someone else's tale. So when Emily Bronte wrote this story, she was partly writing maybe about herself, maybe about her parents' journey, maybe about her friend's journey of love, maybe about a mixed people's journey about love that she combined into one set of characters. Something like that would have transpired for her. So, but she chose to do it in the form of major character were Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff, and the other characters were the secondary characters, and the second major characters were Cathy and Hareton. So with Cathy and Hareton, now if I look at, and they were likely experienced also over the centuries that this book has been written. Even before this book was written, this was possibly a life trajectory of some couple in their past life. So 400-500 years back, they could have had some very similar Heathcliff life experience in their life. One example could be from the Bible. If I look at the story of Jacob, when he was wanting to marry Rachel, he was subject to a lot of cruelty there. The cruelty of his experience was not discussed in a form of a long story, but whatever story that was explored about Jacob when he had to do a lot of back-breaking work for Rachel's father, partly is very similar to what Hareton was doing when he was doing many things for Heathcliff. Only difference there, Jacob is a relative of Rachel's father. Here, realistically speaking, Hareton Earnshaw is not related to Heathcliff, but Heathcliff was his guardian technically in a way. So he was still raised by Heathcliff, right? So something like that, he was kind of like a parental figure for Hareton. So this thing that Hareton, now let's assume that Hareton was in a past life Jacob, or a Jacob-like person. So this is how our reincarnation cycle goes. In the first reincarnation cycle, that person was only your father-in-law, and you had a choice in that lifetime whether you want to, or a future father-in-law, whether you want to listen to your future father-in-law and do everything they are telling you to do, or whether you will just do your own thing. Like he had every choice, Jacob had every choice to do his own thing and leave the area if he wanted. but he didn't. He stayed, and he was really interested in Rachel. So that is also a kind of like a high level twin flame journey or high level soulmate journey that he had with Rachel. That's why only he felt deeply in love. That was also a very deep love, the story of Jacob and Rachel. And despite him getting married to someone else also, he could never forget Rachel. So that's why his first wife actually felt very rejected in that marital relationship. But and his first wife was a very devoted wife, but she always felt like, why couldn't I deserve my husband's love? I did so many things for my husband. Despite that, I never got his love. And here again was the false twin and real twin flame experience in that story of the Bible as well, where the false twin is the first wife of Jacob, who was duped into marrying this sister of Rachel's. So when he was duped into marrying the sister of Rachel, that sister of Rachel actually was his false twin, who actually, if she also had a free will choice, like she could have decided that I will not marry someone out of trickery. If I know that my sister loves this guy and this guy loves my sister, and devotedly he has been working hard for my father to gain the hands of my sister, if she had made the right lighter choices and she was not desperate that I must have a husband, because at that time there were all these things thousands of years back that women had to have a husband, women had to have children. These were also considered to be the typical women's roles. So the first wife of Jacob did everything that a typical wife should do, whereas his wife Rachel, she had difficulty becoming pregnant. She was not giving him a child. He didn't get married to her. He had to wait another few decades to marry her. So all these decades of time that he took to gain her love, he was doing it, and that's why it was a true twin flame experience, because he was ready to do whatever it is needed to be done. And even if his wife didn't, even if Rachel had never given him a son, his love for Rachel would not have gone away, because that is what that love was about. That love was about true love, deep love, meaningful love, where even if you don't do all the things that normally a wife is supposed to do for you, a person who you are betrothed to should be doing, despite that, like he could have got very angry that why did Rachel allow her sister to marry me. I would have been, some man could be very egotistical and get angry about it, not now wait for the second wife for his girl, the person he loves. He could have decided, I don't want to wait for her, I'll just leave now. And I don't he could have even decided in anger to abandon his wife now, who he got married to, by cheating. All of these things he could have done, and he didn't do it. He still waited for the girl that he loves, because that is who he loves, and that is the reason why God had sent him to this family's life. That was his purpose, and he did his dutiful job as a husband. Now in that life, he did a dutiful job as a husband towards his first wife, which now leads to pain for Rachel, because, and that is something now he and Rachel have to solve as a karma in a future life, which can in the modern life now be a couple where he could again, he has a choice. He could again, fall for a, now in the modern world, there is no forcing, no father. Very few countries are there where a father will force a man to marry some older daughter and things like that. Very few countries are there. India sometimes has those kind of systems even now, but many of the modern world countries, the developed countries, don't have this system anymore. So in that system, what is happening when this system is not there, that the parents are deciding the marriage, people are dating multiple people, and while dating multiple people, now these questions then arise. And that is what the higher level twin flame experience of this century is like, where you have to decide who I have been tied to. Is that person my karmic? Is that person my false twin flame? Is that person my twin flame? Is that person my soulmate? If I decide to live with the soulmate, what am I letting go of when I am marrying someone who is my if I marry my false twin flame, or if I marry my soulmate, I can't then marry my twin flame, right? So what is the cost you're willing to pay? Are you ready to marry only your twin flame, or are you going to get sidetracked by all these people? And that's why only those tests come to you about all the other people who were in a previous lifetime possibly even married to you. And because in the past men used to be married to 2-3 different women, and it was allowed for men to have 2-3 different wives, so now in the present those same wives of your past might come back to you, but they were all meant to be these versions of wives only, where the first wife of Jacob was supposed to be his false twin flame, because she has married him out of trickery. Anything that is done out of trickery, anything that is done out of malicious intent, and actually, according to me, when I have read the story of Jacob, I felt that his wife, even though she was a very dutiful wife, she was superficially very dutiful. Internally, she didn't have true love for him. Then she would have been a higher level soulmate of his. She wasn't a higher level soulmate. If she was a dutiful wife, but doing the wifely things very honorably, and not duping him, cheating him in the marriage itself, then she would have been a higher level soulmate kind of a wife. But she turned into which wife? She was actually either a karmic wife or a false twin flame, because firstly the marriage itself was a trickery, secondly she was a karmic and false twin flame of Jacob, and karmic of Rachel. So because Rachel was her sister, so as a sister you are supposed to look out for your sister. As an older sister, you are supposed to look out even more for your sister, but here she was just waiting to take the sister's husband. So she took the sister's husband, she married the sister's husband. She didn't care that her sister's love story is now getting ruined as a result of her choice. She not only didn't care there, if she had stopped there, again she was also very dark personality, going and navigating the path of darkness and all the these are all lower vibrational choices. When we allow jealousy, when we allow insecurity, when we allow anything that the socioeconomic circumstance of your life is driving us to make those kind of choices, at that time we are existing in a lower vibrational choice. We are not making the higher vibrational alternative, because Jacob's first wife, she could have decided that let my younger sister get married, maybe I should ask my father that, father, get me married first and then get my sister married. And the father also, other than Jacob, are there other men also who were working under him? Maybe Jacob was the best man, but why get both sisters married to the same man? Why? If there were no dearth of men during that century, in that era, he could have got some other equally deserving guy like Jacob to marry his older daughter, but they didn't think only of that route. All they were thinking was, they were just scheming, and because they were using those lower vibrational thoughts, because it's not possible that most of the time on earth the number of men and women on earth are usually at equal ratios. So when it is at equal ratio, when there is no dearth of men, the only time, according to my understanding about polygamy, is this: only time men should be marrying multiple women are after wars, when there are the ratio of men on earth are less and the ratio of women are higher. At this time only, that is the valid time for a man to marry multiple women. Other than that, when the ratio of men and women on earth are equal or nearly equal, like only a little bit off, at that time you can wait to marry the right person. And that waiting to marry the right now on earth, the ratio of men and women are nearly equal, because of which nowadays women wait to marry the right man. Women don't hurriedly marry someone, and not only because the ratio is equal, but also because we are now educated enough, we are not dependent on a man completely, so we can now choose to marry the man who is the most suited for us, rather than a man and a woman, any gender can choose to marry the partner who is most suited to them. And in order to find out and explore who is the most suitable partner, that's why God also is allowing now that you don't have to marry in your teens, you don't have to marry in your 20s, you can marry in your 30s and 40s also, to have a good quality marriage. But when will a good quality marriage transpire for you? Now, good quality marriage in this century is not dependent in the age at which you married someone or the length of time at which you knew someone. Now, in this century, the quality of married life will be the quality of experience you are experiencing with the partner. And in the experience, what becomes a false twin flame or a karmic experience? With Jacob's case, his first wife was poisoning him. She seduced him via techniques that, according the way the story is written, it doesn't directly accuse her about it, but subtly the hints are present in that story to suggest that, at least the Bible version that I've read some online versions of the Bible story. I'm not a Christian, and neither am I a Jew, but this story from the Old Testament I have read online, and from my interpretation of this story, I felt his wife used a lot of deception to get her pregnant. A lot of manipulation tactics were used to also keep Jacob from marrying Rachel. All of these things, he was getting drugged also, he was constantly tired. And in one of the stories I read was something like that. So he was tired, he was sleepy. All these things happen to you when someone is drugging you, someone is manipulating you energetically, someone is duping you and taking undue advantage of you. All of which was happening both from his wife and from his father-in-law. And but despite that, he continued onwards because his goal and his target at that time was marrying Rachel. And now this love is also very intense love, right? This is also, he has only one goal. Like in Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff has only one goal of pursuing Catherine. Here also he has only one goal of pursuing Rachel. And the difference is between Wuthering Heights is Catherine is married, whereas the difference with Jacob is now married. But even then his goal is Rachel. But if he was ideally the man who would have stood up a little bit more for himself and understood that apart from just having this goal of marrying Rachel, he should also have to deny, like if he has been married out of being duped, there has to be a system now that should be created that such forgery of marriages shouldn't happen. And was that system eventually created on earth? From Jacob's experience only in that lifetime, in a next lifetime when something like this is happening to another man, and Jacob is now an ordinary citizen, he is not a character of the Bible or anything, he's just a normal citizen of a state where, he meets another man who has been forged and falsely, duped into marrying someone that that person doesn't want to marry. So at that time, was a system now created? Why did divorces now arise? Divorces related systems now started arising in society because of this thing that good faith marriages were not happening. Someone could have duped another person into marrying, someone could have coerced another person into marrying. Women get energetically and emotionally and financially manipulated into marrying someone. There were people who were sexually using sexual games to manipulate someone into marrying them. So all of these things were present in the past, and then only when it kept happening again and again, and it was leading to an unfairness that you want a crystal clear clarity filled journey with a partner, but that crystal clear clarity filled journey, or the journey where deception is not present, these things, deception will be present, but you have to learn to say. That's why one part of Jacob's and Rachel's journey is in that Bible story itself to any other second, third, fourth, fifth lifetime that they will have with each other. In each of those lifetimes, you have to learn to understand how to say no to deception. In that lifetime, they were new souls. That's why, being new souls, they didn't know how to say no to deception, because Jacob was manipulated also by Rachel's father, and Rachel was manipulated by her sister. Both of them manipulated to create this equation, and since both of them were working jointly to create, like sometimes jointly, sometimes separately with their own individual motivations, they were doing something to ensure that these two don't get married, these two don't have a life together. And there's also possibly a higher purpose to these two suffering also in their hands, but they have to understand when to say no to the suffering. In that lifetime, they didn't say no to their suffering. They just continued enduring whatever suffering they were meant to suffer through. They endured, like Jacob did everything that his father-in-law told him to do. He just kept pursuing Rachel. Jacob also did all the things that a dutiful husband has to do. So he gave sons to his first wife. But though he gave sons, though his first wife manipulated him for sex, though he was overused by his father-in-law for a lot of work, and he was kind of exploited by that father-in-law, whatever was going on with him, one thing that was a brightness in his life's journey was his love for Rachel, and he wanted to do the right thing for Rachel. And the reason why he didn't run away or leave his father-in-law or treat his wife's older sister really badly and poorly is because he wanted to do this for Rachel. Like how in Wuthering Heights discussion I said, what was the difference between, and that is a difference in understanding what is pure love and true love versus what is selfish and egotistical love. Heathcliff, in his egotistical love and pursuit of Catherine, completely forgot about the devastation and consequence of his choices that is also going to hurt Catherine, because even though if he mistreats, he could have mistreated Leah the same way Leah was. I think Leah was his first wife's name, and if I'm wrong about her name, I will correct it. So when if he had mistreated Rachel's older sister, he would have hurt Rachel as well. If he had mistreated her dad, he would have hurt Rachel as well. Because though dad and sister were not in favor of Rachel or weren't deeply in love with Rachel, if they were hurt, she would have been also hurt. That is why Jacob decided to be how he was. But in another lifetime, he can also decide there is another hurt though that is happening while he is thinking at the social, and at that time there was a great societal consequence also, because the more, if like both Leah and her dad, they were showing tendencies of being high level abusers. So when you're with high level abusers, if you don't treat them nicely also, they will treat you badly. If you treat them nicely also, they will treat you badly. But the difference is, if you treat them nicely, the way and the number of toxic onslaught they will bring into your life is going to be higher if you treated them really badly. Like, you know, if these two had a choice to run away, they would have run away, but there was no choice. Like her father had that much socioeconomic power that if they ran away, he would still have abused them in some way or the other. That's why he couldn't run away that easily. Only in the end, I think, of their tale, when something other devastating thing was going on where they must run, that is the time they chose to run. Otherwise, they were both too young, too naive about the world to have run away when they were younger by themselves. And if they had run away by themselves, there would have been some other consequences that would have unfolded that would have been worse for them. And he could have chosen not to sleep with Leah though, which he didn't do. Or maybe if he was duped into sleeping with Leah, then the thing is, he couldn't do anything about it, because of the fact that that time society didn't used to understand that male abuse can also happen. But in this generation, can we or should we acknowledge that a man can also get abused by his wife? Like how a woman is sexually abused by a man, like that a man can also be sexually abused or manipulated by a woman too. And in Jacob's tale, if you read it carefully, I feel he was abused by his first wife, abused and manipulated. So that thing can happen. And these experiences that Jacob experienced in that lifetime, when maybe laws weren't there to address abuse of men, or what should men do when they are duped into a marriage, or how should they get out of such marriages, now is the generation where you have to discuss that, bring in into law, into understanding where both people are being abusive, where only one person is being abusive, where someone is getting manipulated into seem like that they are being abused. Like Leah was the one who was manipulating these situations. So if throughout her life Leah has contemplated and asked God that I gave him children, I did so many things for him, why does my husband not love? Can someone actually love you if you are, you know, sexually abusing them or drugging them and having sex with them, or disrespecting their body even and soul, because their soul was already tied to Rachel? Can you have that respect and love for that spouse? You can't, because that spouse is constantly manipulating you, trying to get something from you that you didn't even consent to giving to them, but they are still continuing to want that from you. And that's why it was a karmic and false twin experience with Leah. And with Rachel, it was still a pure experience, because he did want to maintain as much of the purity he could maintain given his circumstances of his life, to be just loyal to Rachel. And one of the ways in which he continued continued being loyal to Rachel was by never loving Leah, because that is also loyalty. Why should I love? Never loving mean, I'm not saying that he was not loving as a human being, but he was not loving as a spouse. And that is necessary in a marriage, that you should have spousal loyalty towards each other, that relationship level loyalty towards each other. Then only you are on the twin flame journey with that soul. But if you are not doing that spousal level loyalty in a relationship with someone, very rarely are you on a twin flame journey with that person. Then you are in some of the other categories of life journey with them. I hope this made sense. And then another thing, and in Heathcliff's case, it was the opposite thing. Like he was there, and there Catherine was loyal to her husband. That's why Catherine Earnshaw and Edgar's story was loyal. At least she was sexually loyal, tried to stay sexually loyal to her husband. Emotionally, she was getting divided and conflicted. And emotionally, though, some people who have real energetic magnetism, they can pull anyone towards them, which is what Heathcliff's power was. He can pull anyone towards him. But understanding, when you have that high level magnetism, you don't need to pull everyone towards you, or even the first love that you have. You have to learn that lesson that your first love may not be your last love, or shouldn't be your only love, or maybe only a love experience of first love, where you have to learn how to let go of that love. Jacob not letting go Rachel is slightly different from Heathcliff not being able to let go of Catherine. And that difference, if you understand and you do the spiritual work related to it, then only you will get the difference. Otherwise, what happens is, it's a thing like, if I am a doctoral level student and I'm discussing a doctoral level topic with a 10th grade or 5th grade student, will they understand all the elements of the doctoral level thing I'm discussing, or are they only going to understand the 10th level thing, 5th level thing? They will understand only the 5th level thing because they are in 5th grade now. Someone who's in 10th grade, they will understand only the 10th grade level thing because they are in 10th grade now. Only the one who is in doctoral level thing, they will understand what the doctoral level thing means, right? So twin flame journey is like that. Twin flame journey is a doctoral level journey of love. So if you are at the baby level journey of love, in the baby level journey of love, we are wanting baby or toddler. What do babies and toddlers do? Babies and toddlers only want they want the mother who will give them food. They want the father or mother who will soothe them, provide them good shelter, good housing. That's all the baby level toddler wants, right? The babies and toddlers want only that. Give me food, give me clothing, give me shelter. And if everything is well, I will not cry, I will be quiet. If everything is disrupted because I don't know speech, I will cry about it, shout about it. That is the baby level toddler's journey, right? But are there adults also who shout and shout in life when something that is needed for them for survival is not there in their life? Of course. So, and you should. Does that mean you are a baby level toddler? No. So how do you distinguish between who is a baby level toddler and who is a mature adult who is 25-30 years old? The difference is, a 30-year-old woman, before, if a woman doesn't get something from her spouse, like very simple basic thing, like she is daily cooking something beautiful for her spouse, it's a new marriage, 2-3 years have only passed in the marriage, every day she lovingly cooks something beautiful for her husband, every day. And if not every day, let's say 90% of the days of their life, she has been cooking beautiful food. 10% of the days when she has periods or other challenges, she didn't cook good food. So if she has cooked 90% of her lifetime with that husband for 2-3 years of their life, beautiful food for him, who is going to be a toddler in that relationship? The person who just keeps getting food without appreciating anything about the spouse. That person is a toddler level spouse now, who even after gaining 20-30 years of maturity hasn't understood what it means to appreciate a spouse for what the spouse is providing, hasn't got the maturity to understand that what the spouse is providing is meeting my need without me even asking. Because with toddlers also, what initially when the toddler is baby, an infant, and just beginning to cry, and the parent doesn't have enough experience with the toddler, the baby will cry more. But once the parent has good experience with the baby, the parent will try to manage the thing with the baby in as best scenario as possible, so that the baby doesn't cry all the time, right? That is one goal of a parent who is nurturing a baby, that you don't want to make the baby cry unnecessarily. If the baby is hungry, if the parent is caretaking and a caring parent, he will provide the food to the baby, right? Is the parent going to allow the baby to keep crying? If the parent allows the baby to keep crying, and the parent didn't have something else going on at that time when he did that, at that time, if he had complete attention was only on the baby, nothing else was influencing the parent's life, At that time when the baby is crying, he's not able to provide attention, he's not able to provide care. Is there something wrong with the parent then? That parent also might be a toddler level parent, because these kind of parents do exist in the world. They are called those narcissistic parents, antisocial personality parents, Munchausen by proxy holding people. These are the kind of people who will allow the child to cry when the child shouldn't cry, when all you need to give to the child to make the child stop is give them the water that they need. If their clothing is messed up, they have pooped on their clothing, you need to change their clothing. You need to also give them cleaner clothing after changing. Also, there are so many parents, they don't understand when the baby has been changed. If the baby is still crying, they'll be like, I have changed your clothes, why are you still crying? There, that parent needs to understand that maybe you have given them clothes that are uncomfortable for the child to wear. The skin is not able to tolerate wearing those clothing. So that is something this generation parent has to work through, because there are a lot of crappy clothing out there in the market, and with more choices, the choice of poor quality products are higher right now in the market than lower, and than what it was previously when we had a cleaner earth, better earth. So these things, you have to evolve as a parent, right? So, and how did you evolve into understanding all these things? The person who understands these things deeply has existed at different time points on earth. That's why you also have reincarnation. So reincarnation serves different purposes. When I've lived in a cleaner earth, I know what it means to have clean life, clean earth. When I've lived with a clean family, easygoing family, I understand what it means to be with a easygoing, clean, cooperative family. And then when I now live with someone who is not clean, not meeting needs, deliberately sabotaging about meeting needs, you have to understand that also, because Heathcliff was doing that. He was deliberately not providing for their needs. And there's also in Wuthering Heights also very subtle hint. You should ask, like, why did all these characters die immediately within few months of each other? Was something else at play also? Because if someone doesn't consciously, even with their object of their affection, they are not being fair to the object of their affection, is not able to let go of that object of the affection, when the object of the affection says that now that I'm having a baby, let me go, he's not able to do that. Like she did, try to tell him, but he was not ready to let her go. So that thing was happening with Heathcliff. And then whoever was actually good to him, like Hindley was not good to him, so he was being cruel to Hindley, makes sense. But Edgar was being good to him. Then also he he was indirectly abusing Edgar. He was not directly doing anything to him, but by cheating on his wife, he's doing something spiritually disloyal towards that soul, right? Secondly, he was also being disloyal towards Isabella, because he wanted to manipulate her into loving him, just so that he could be closer to Kathy. So all of these things that he was doing, these were all high soul level, spiritual level betrayal he was doing to all of them, with earthly consequences. But other than that, he was also most likely, when you are abusive of someone, you are also adding to their harm also. When you stay with the abuser a long time, if you don't get love, if you don't get the love that nourishes you, thrives you, that by itself could have led to Isabella's death. But he also had a hidden motivation of doing what? He also had a hidden motivation. And what did he do eventually in his life? Eventually, in the 20-30 years journey he had with all of these characters, Heathcliff also ensured that all their property was written to him. Everything came to him. He wanted to acquire their property. He was in the need, his soul just wanted that property. He somehow decided that your property is the reason why I didn't get Kathy, which is also very distorted way of thinking. So all these distorted perceptions that he had, that just because I didn't have money or I didn't have these properties, Kathy couldn't be with me. He held that belief system. Even when he had acquired one of the properties, then also Kathy couldn't be with him. But he couldn't understand that lesson at that time, that even though he got many of the property from Hindley, or had started acquiring other properties in this area, despite that, Kathy didn't want to be with him. Why? Because she's already settled in a marriage. She was with a soulmate possibly, and she was happy in her marriage. But Heathcliff still wanted to pull her out into being with him. Because for him, he couldn't let go of the fact that she could choose another. Now, in the story of Jacob and Rachel, if indeed it had happened that Leah was not that abusive towards him, or she was very nice towards him, and she was truly, in my opinion, Leah was not a dutiful wife. She projected herself as a dutiful wife, but she was a narcissistic or antisocial personality type. So she was not realistically a dutiful wife. She was just doing the things a dutiful wife on paper should be doing. So on paper, during that time period, they needed to cook for their husband, they needed to provide children and sons to the husband, and she did all that. But while on paper and in practical life, she was doing all the practical structured things that a wife is supposed to be doing. The hidden thing that is always there, that is actually the main thing of life on earth, is not just what you're doing on paper. God doesn't look at what you are doing materially on paper for someone. Materially, she's cooking, but with the cooking, if she's poisoning him, and Rachel also, died early, so she very likely poisoned both him and Rachel. And one of them died, one of them just slept all through the poisoning. So while she was doing this poisoning to both of them, was she doing the right thing? Because while God didn't say thou shall not poison, but thou shall not poison is a natural consequence of the commandment which says thou shall not covet. She was coveting someone else's spouse. Spiritually, he was her spouse already when he was betrothed to her, and his deep love for Rachel was already the indicator that he is not going to be disloyal towards her. So already she was coveting someone else's spouse. So from there it started, and thou shall not covet is just the first, you can call the first the commandment's first rule. That first basic rule you shouldn't violate. But what happens to those who have already violated that rule, that I have coveted someone else's spouse? Then the ancillary rules are all these things related to you should not murder, you should not, because each of these rules of the 10 commandments, and again I'm not a theologian, so I don't remember all the commandments, but each of these, murdering someone is a sin, right? So she has done that sin. So even though if she says on paper I gave you a child, but you have murdered that person's first love, that is a sin. You have murdered someone who was your own sister also, that is also a sin. So multi-level sin was going on in her soul. She was sinning and sinning continuously. So while she's sinning, she can't say that why am I not getting love from these people, because you're sinning, and you're sinning in a way to maliciously harm people. There was malicious intent also present in your core soul belief system. You were not seeing the consequence also of, at the simplest level, you are at least meant to see what is the consequence of the choice I'm making that is going to harm these people. At a more complex level, at a spiritual level, you are meant to understand you are doing a harm to betraying these souls. You're betraying yourself also, and doing your self-harm, because self-harm goes simultaneously with harming of another. And herself, and if she now goes to God to get justice and asks God, I did all these things for Jacob, shouldn't he have been loyal to me? Shouldn't he have loved me? But in order to do all these things for Jacob, to give him a son, she manipulated so many things. So she has violated a lot of spiritual laws. So she can't expect that he should love her. He can't love her. He won't love her. Or even if he does love her, that cannot be the kind of love. She wants the Rachel Jacob kind of love in her life, but she can't go to the Rachel Jacob kind of love in her life if she makes choices that don't lead her towards Rachel Jacob kind of love. Same way with Heathcliff. Heathcliff decides that he wants the comfortable life of these people. Heathcliff wanted the comfort related to their money that they had. They were estate owners. They were riding around in carriages. They were wearing beautiful clothes. They didn't have hunger related, poverty related misery in their life. So he wanted that life, and he gained that life. But that life is meaningful when? That life is meaningful only with a partner, and that's why only two of the other male characters of the story didn't have a beautiful, or Edgar got Catherine only for a few years in his life, and she passed away after childbirth. Same way, Hindley also had a slightly beautiful marriage for a few years, and then again his wife passed away after a while. And in all of these also, because Heathcliff was constantly just wanting everyone else's happiness, because he's not understanding, and he was a narcissistic personality, or antisocial plus narcissistic personality, which also means that if he was antisocial plus narcissistic personality, even though the story never accuses him for doing this, there's a high possibility and likelihood that he killed and murdered many of these characters who died in the story. Because if he saw Hindi was miserable, Hindi was gambling, drinking, everything, but he was still showing a little bit of beautiful happiness with his wife, and he didn't want that for Hindley. So he could very well have been responsible for making, because there are 3 people who died out of sickness. Linton died of sickness, Isabella died of sickness, as well as Hindley's wife died of sickness, and Catherine also. When Catherine rejected him, we don't know whether he actually tried to, maybe he gave her a abortifacient, okay, or some thing, because he didn't want, he could have done it. It's not explored in the story because everyone was telling the tale not from Heathcliff's perspective, right? But God knows, and anyone who has been surrounded by a person like Heathcliff, those kind of people know what Heathcliff like people are actually capable of doing, even if the witnesses around them never understand what he did. So there the day Catherine died, while he was very obsessively standing around the house, or she was like wandering around Edgar Linton's estate and things like that, and I'm not remembering everything very detailed like from the storyline because it's been decades since I've read it, but the pattern he was showing there is a pattern, yes, of someone who is deeply in love with someone, but it is also a pattern that can manifest in a person whose soul has done a great crime. And he started with that journey of the great crime by possibly he wanted to kill little Kathy. So he must have given something to, and he had given something to her. I think he gave her a glass of water or something. So it's very easy for him to have poisoned her during that interaction. And his intent was what? His intent was the baby should die, because again, when you are a distorted personality, narcissistic personality, antisocial personality, you do these twisted thinking. And for him, initially he believed that he needed property, but when he got property, he saw Kathy is still not living Edgar, and Kathy is saying she's not leaving Edgar. Her main reason, you can't give all the reasons of your life why you love someone or why you want to stick with a partner. It takes you time to give those reasons, and even if you give all those reasons to a narcissistic personality, it will not matter to a narcissistic personality or an unconscious personality why you are still in love with someone, because you can't define love. Love is like that. Love or loyalty are all the lightness of being related characteristics. How much ever I define it at the soul level, intentional level, you have to realize it in order to become that. And if you're not becoming that at the soul level, intentional level, executional level, you stay like a toddler in a relationship. So Heathcliff was a toddler in that relationship. He just wants Kathy, that's it. He's not realizing, like, let's say a toddler is there who's an adjusting toddler, who's a mature toddler. If today my mother was giving breast milk, but 6 months later her breast milk has died, and now I have to, and also I have now grown teeth, so it's hurtful for the mother if I am continuing breast milk. So if the toddler is adjusting, what will the toddler do? That infant who is an adjusting infant and a nice infant and not a selfish infant, that infant slowly will wean off. Only if the parent is weaning him off or her off, they will wean off easily, slowly over the next few months. Whereas while the teeth is forming, whereas the infant who is a very selfish infant or a selfish toddler, or remaining a little bit stuck in their selfishness, or their enabling of their selfishness is also going on sometimes by other people, then that toddler will not wean off. Like from natural weaning off, I believe, is from 6 months, ever since the child gets the teeth, from that time onwards the weaning off should start slowly and naturally. And you can slowly do it for another 6 months, you can slowly do it for 1 year, 1.5 years. That should be the natural weaning period. But when that natural weaning period is not happening, and that is dependent on the toddler's developmental things going on in their life and the mother's developmental things. Mother's body will also show when the milk is not coming, toddler's teeth will also show, many other things, both of them combined, and it's a mutual experience between the mother and a child. So that mutual cooperative experience of both their patterns shifting will show when it is the time to disengage. Okay, but if something toxic is going on, that disengagement will not happen. When you do not understand why weaning off is an important part also of child rearing, where so there also there is a letting go happening. There is also a letting go of love happening. But does that mean the mother doesn't love the child when the mother is letting go first? No. Like when her body is saying no more milk is there, that mother doesn't mean that the mother doesn't love the child. Why? Then at that time when the milk is going away, she is replenishing the milk with other foods, baby solids, the infant formula, or some cooked mashed foods that we make at home. So that's how you are weaning off the child, right? So you don't stop caring when you are letting go of the bondage of the feeding of a child via breast milk, right? So you supplement it, right? Or there are women who have complete problems in the initial few months only of producing milk. At that time also there's a reason for that, and one of the reasons is the mother might be sick in some way or nutritionally challenged in some way. It is better for the child to get formula instead, right? So when is it better for the child to get breast milk from the mother? When the mother is healthy, when the mother has healthy nutritional things that they can give the child. Same way, if the child has now developed a lot of teeth and he's not still weaning off, then you have to try tactics to wean off the child slowly. But usually the healthy detachment from the child also will developmentally start happening, that the child also shouldn't be demanding 3 times a day milk, because if you're supplementing the milk now and you've now started supplementing it, the need for the drinking of the milk also will reduce, and it will reduce from earlier the child wanting it for 4-5 times in a day. Now it will want only 1 or 2 times in a day. That is also a natural part of the weaning off. Like you reduce from 5 times to 4 times, 4 times to 3 times, 3 times to 2 times, 2 times to 1 time, and then 1 time to nothing. If you do that, instead of making them quit cold turkey, that is the naturally aligned way, health aligned way, balanced way of weaning off something, right? So this thing is how healthy detachment Heathcliff should have done with Catherine Earnshaw, that he should have realized that first time she said no, that no should have stuck with him. And if it had stuck with him, understanding that if she's saying no, there is a reason for that no, I need to understand that reason. And at a deeper soul level, if she had undergone that deeper soul level reasoning about it, then slowly she told him no at least 3 or 4 times in the storyline, in the plot, and possibly more than that times. So when she has said no that many times in the storyline, it's the 4 main times, but she could have said no to him many other times as well, and each of those times was a time for him to slowly wean off the attachment to Catherine. Whereas with Jacob and Rachel never said no to Jacob. Rachel wanted to marry Jacob only, and Jacob also never said no to Rachel. He also wanted to marry Rachel only. So when they have never rejected each other, how is someone else interfering in their relationship? That's where the difference between Jacob's relationship with Rachel lies, and the difference between Catherine's relationship with Heathcliff lies. And that's why you can't categorize Catherine and Heathcliff as real twin flames. It is mostly a toxic experience of love and a false twin flame, or a karmic experience of love. And then with the last time she rejected him when she was pregnant, why I suspect that some poisoning was going on there is because he kept blaming Kathy for her death. Whereas again, if you are slowly wisening up in life, you will realize that Kathy was not responsible. Like, she was just going to be born that day. Her mother dying had other consequences. And how is the other consequence important? If she had, say, I don't know if the story had described whether she bled to death, but if it was bleeding to death, if a medication was given, that abortifacients usually will also make you bleed and shed the cells of the skin. And abortifacients work when the baby is in the first trimester. So you're not supposed to give a abortifacient to when the baby is in the last trimester. And in the last trimester, if you have given the baby the woman a abortifacient, and let's say he did that, he had the knowledge, he was away from the family for many years, he has also lived around, I said there is a possibility that he could have lived around women for many years. There was a possibility that he was a gypsy child. So gypsies know these things, because gypsies sometimes kidnap children. Gypsies sometimes are involved in herbal medicine related stuff. So when they are doing, and even if he was not a gypsy, there was a secondary possibility that some people told him he could be his parents could have been Indian, his parents could have been Chinese. But all of these gypsies, Indians, Chinese, they're all ancient civilizations who knew how to use herbal medicine for curing. But the same thing that can be used for curing can also become harmful at a certain potential level. So if he decides that in the first trimester X amount of herbal medicine can cause abortion, he can decide falsely that if I give 3 times the X amount in the last trimester or 10 times the X amount in the last trimester, the baby will die. He can assume that, and he could have given that. But instead of the baby dying, maybe by that time, because of all the physical pain he was giving Kathy, the emotional pain he was giving Kathy, she was already under stress from that interaction only with him. That by itself could have caused her to start now the birthing process, because a lot of pressure is happening at a internal level, and that pressure itself could have started the birthing process. So whatever poison he gave her didn't even reach the child, because by the time the process, any medicine if you are given, it usually takes a couple of hours for it to act, and by the time the child was already born, so the child didn't die or the child didn't get impacted. But Kathy died because the abortifacient now could have been something that can cause a lot of shedding of skin and breakdown of cells, and can cause a lot of bleeding, which is what after childbirth anyways a woman is at a risk of heavy bleeding. So bleeding combined with the medicine he gave her now resulted in his death. And if he never takes the blame that I gave her the poison that led to Kathy's death, is he ever going to learn the lesson related to his karma? No. And that was what was unfolding in the whole storyline, that for decades of after Kathy passing away also, Catherine passing away, he couldn't realize that he couldn't, God was always there in the storyline of his life, where if he wanted to kill someone, the killing impact happened to Catherine instead of baby Kathy, because baby Kathy had some important role in her life, and baby Kathy had to be born. So baby Kathy had to be born. Baby Kathy, after having been born, had to be there to influence Edgar's next life journey, because there was a choice at that time God had to make. Does Catherine stay or Kathy stay? And God made the choice of making Kathy stay and Catherine go away, because Catherine was getting conflicted that do I love him, do I not love him. She was getting also energetically manipulated. She was also now so trustful of him. She's not observing when he's poisoning her, and she will also be like that if Kathy had also, both of them had survived that incident, or only one of the Kathy dies and she survives, he could still again keep poisoning her and other people around her to just get her attention. So all of these were, God knows what is the outcome that is going to happen to Kathy's soul, Catherine's soul. So that's why Catherine Earnshaw had to die, because God knew what was going to happen to Catherine Earnshaw if she survived it. And Kathy had a higher purpose now, because the love that Edgar deserved, the disproportionate loyalty that was happening via Catherine to him, that disproportionate loyalty was never going to be in question with Kathy. So Kathy completely loved Edgar. For her, everything was Edgar. So the love that he deserved, he also deserved some good love, right? He was a good human being. He was a loyal husband. He was a good brother. He was a good son. So all of these things that he has done in his life, his karma determined that the woman who should now stay, if it is a question of which woman has to stay, the woman who will be giving him absolute good love, high level love. And Kathy was likely, the baby Kathy was likely a soulmate of Edgar. So being a soulmate of Edgar, she was now there in his life to help him with the grief processing when Catherine has died, and also to bring out all the lovely things that he has. He has a lot of beautiful things in him that made him a good husband, good brother, and good human. So all of those good things, because baby Kathy was born and stayed with him and lived with him for the number of years before he died, all of those years he at least got that undivided love, that soulmate level love that he deserved. That even though Catherine also would have given it to him, but she could have only given it to him if Heathcliff didn't keep pulling her and asking her, come with me, I am your love, no one else is your love. So that's why only it was a karmic experience of love between Catherine and Heathcliff. So I hope this made sense. And then in next life, now for Kathy has a higher purpose. In this life, she has learned she understood the darkness of Heathcliff. Now, let's say Heathcliff decides in the next life, I'll be a better human being. I won't be this dark in the next life. And he decides in the next life, he wants to be Kathy's father, and he wants to be Catherine's husband. He can decide like that in the next life, I will have that soul plan. And he wants forgiveness from God. And he says that in the next life, I will do better by Catherine. I'm not going to poison Catherine. I'm not going to poison Kathy. And God will do everything in his power to make sure that he will not poison Kathy and Catherine in the next life. Next life, he is the husband of Catherine. He is the father of Kathy, direct father and husband of them. And yes, he will not poison them. But if past life karma related things were there going on, and where Kathy has now realized that, Kathy after death also realizes what was going on, right? So Kathy now is going to be wary of Heathcliff. So how much ever Heathcliff is nice to her in that life, Kathy may not be nice to Heathcliff. Catherine also may not be nice to Heathcliff, and he has to take that less niceness from them in that next life. Why? Because he's facing now in that next life the past life's consequence of having tried to murder them, having actually emotionally, physically, psychologically tortured them, one of them in a long time, one of them at a short time period, but he had done some emotional trauma to them. And that's why only until Kathy and Catherine heal their karma with him, if Kathy heals her karma completely in that lifetime with Heathcliff, she will not have any bad experiences with Heathcliff in the next life as his daughter. But she would still see how he's treating Catherine. Catherine had a conflicting experience. She couldn't clear the karma. So Catherine will have a difficult marriage only with Heathcliff. There is no possibility only of Catherine having a good marriage with Heathcliff. Because Heathcliff had tried to poison her, Heathcliff had tried to manipulate her in the last life, and in this life maybe his manipulation will be a little lesser. And you can't how you detox from a poison, or how a poison increases slowly in your body to cause some health harm. Being a very toxic personality type, it takes time to detox from being that toxic personality type also. So you can't just one day change from being a high level manipulator of humans to a no manipulator of human. So in the past life, if he was all the time in his life as Heathcliff, he manipulated everyone. He manipulated everyone, duped everyone, poisoned a couple of people for the poisoning. No one caught him for the poisoning. His manipulations were evident to people. His greed was evident to people, but the poisoning was not evident. Now, if there was some witnesses who were also understanding what the poisoning meant, those witnesses will again come back in Heathcliff's life in the next life also, because they understand what Heathcliff is capable of doing, and they are meant to there in Heathcliff's life to keep him in check. That in this life he shouldn't be murdering people, he shouldn't be doing that. Now his life in the next life as a father, responsible citizen, whatever he came to be on earth, his karma will be cleared when he doesn't poison anyone. If in the last life he poisoned 5 people, in the next life he has a potential now from going from 4 to 0 poisoning. That is what will be the improvement of his soul. But if he is not able to do it, and repeatedly he comes on earth, promises God, I will not do this, I will not do that, I'll be really good this time, and he continuously keeps, lifetime after lifetime he gets chances, but he doesn't take the chances up, then there is a different possibility only. You will stop having a lifetime on earth. You have to take a life journey somewhere else, and there are other systems created for those souls who are not able to learn the difficulty of earthly life's existence. Whereas if you are navigating the difficulty of earthly life existence slowly, that is where, after lifetime of navigating it in some right ways, then you get the chance to now ascend out of earthly life into somewhere else. And how you will ascend depends for different people. Jesus Christ ascended, but he still stayed on earth. But some people can also ascend after death. So you don't know when your ascension will happen, how your ascension will happen, how it unfolds, and after death in the next lifetime you will ascend. But you can start getting information about ascension. Like right now in my current status of health, I don't know actually. I have left that to God. I have surrendered that to God, because there are literally many things in my life that can result in my death in this life itself in the next few years. There are many things that can revert those things that are going to be responsible for my death, but only if the circumstances surrounding the things that will lead to my death will not be there, then only I will be able to live another few decades. And then there is also a potential when I'm leaving, if I leave earth now, how I ascend will be very different from if I leave earth 30 years later. Like leave earth meaning if I die now and if I die 30 years later, my body, my soul will have a very different experience. And based on what I'm choosing right now until the time I die, because my death is certain yet not certain, meaning when the death will happen is uncertain. What factors are going to lead to the death is now certain, because those poisons are there already in my body. So those poisons, if not extracted, if not taken out, if not given the right medical intervention, that poison guaranteed is going to kill me. How it will kill me will depend on divine timing. God will decide when it will kill me. If it gets extracted from my body, if it gets healed from my body, then I will not die. But again, it is all dependent not simply on the physical factors that are leading to my death. With Catherine, it was not simply a poison that led to her death. It was emotional factor, psychological factor, life condition related factor, all of which was present in Wuthering Heights, which you may think is a fictional story, but in reality, Wuthering Heights has a very potent story of real life experiences that some people navigate in life, who realistically go through exactly or very similar to Catherine Earnshaw like experience, Kathy Linton like experiences, or each of these characters are very realistic people, because real people also go through these challenges that these characters went through, karmic challenges, spiritual challenges, practical life related challenges. And when that's why only those stories become classics, because in that classic it is a experience that can repeat time after time in a different version, in a different way, but it is still the same soul growth related experience, or soul dissension related experience, or soul journey related experience. So and when you're recognizing yourself in different characters, that's when also you are preparing for a ascension journey, because now you've begun to recognize that, like how I can recognize that I have done some toxic patterns like Heathcliff. I have been for me like that magnetizing people, I have done that. Other toxic things like Heathcliff I haven't done, but I have magnetized people in my life and then realized that they were wrong partners for me. And I realized they had actually, like how Catherine was saying constantly no to Heathcliff, when they were saying no, I should have trusted that. So that is my experience of ascension from evolution as a human being, that if someone says no to me now, I need to respect that no and let them go. That is my next level of evolution from it. That how I understood later, belatedly after 6 months or 3 months or 1 year or 2 years, that this person, when they said initially no to me, I should have believed them, that there was a reason. While they couldn't give me the logical reason, our life journey itself together for the few months and years we stayed together itself finally showed me the reason as to why they had initially said no, and why that no, if we had listened to it, both of us had listened to it. So my karma was, I tried to convince them that let's be together. Their karma was, they fell for the potential of love that was possible, and both of us fell for the potential of love that couldn't manifest because our frequencies weren't right, our wavelength weren't right, our maturity level was not aligned, our harmonizing things needed to make the relationship a harmonized higher soulmate relationship or a higher twin flame relationship was not possible at that point of time. So our just coming in contact was the something that God couldn't prevent. So I would have actually learned even without dating them, the lessons I had to learn from them, I could have learned them by being their friend also. But the friend who is observing them now in a relationship. So these were the only two paths that would have, like with my two ex-boyfriends that I have discussed. With them, if I had married them, not married, sorry, if I was just, if I had not dated them, and I had agreed, like, let's not date. Like they are saying, let's not date. I also agree, let's not date. And then our friendship now unfolded with that person. My lifetime soul contract was, you will be together for a few years. So those few years of 3-4 years that we were together as friends, on and off dating, whatever was going, a mixture of things was going on in the first relationship. So in all of those things, if I had just, instead of the mixture of things that went around, I was only just a platonic friend for that person, the same experience that I had to learn from him related to his parental wounds, the way he behaves with women, the way he dates women, I could have understood that experience by just being his friend, observing him when he's dating someone else, how he's treating another woman. Some of it I could have understood it at that level. The deeper thing related to how a man touches, the good touch, bad touch related things I've discussed in some of these videos. The deeper things related to that, I wouldn't have gained that experience. But I would have gained experience related to respect, related to abuse from just his patterns of behavior with another person. Same way, but because a deeper experience was also needed, that's why only God let us be together, because God knows that which deeper experience, sometimes when you get that deeper rejection also from someone, that deeper rejection can teach you more than if you didn't get that rejection. So the uncomfort, the discomfort I felt when he was touching me, which was a very good lesson for me when I was actually married. In my marriage, the touch was even worse than what that guy was showing, because that guy at least had a little lesser garbage of spirituality in him. So because he had lesser garbage of spirituality or lesser other like, let's say there are two guys, one guy has a lot of this guy, the first guy and the guy I married, the difference between the two, they both were very disrespectful about touching my body in the way they were touching me. But there was a difference in not just touch. In one, the behavioral patterns were also very disrespectful in how they view women, how they view a wife, what they view a wife as, what level of respect they hold the wife or girlfriend in their eyes. And that difference, slight difference was there. Again, they were very similar also. So that's why the first one was a false twin flame, where the false twin flame will give you a very lot of dark experiences. And my ex-husband was a catalyst karmic, who immediately, because it was a repeating experience of the first one, and not just a repeating experience, but a worse version and a very directly harmful version, like how if Heathcliff has indeed poisoned Kathy, that is really a harmful version of Heathcliff if he has had poisoned Kathy. Okay, so when you do that, when you are not only just pulling someone towards you, wanting them to come to you, and if you don't get them, you are going to kill them or do harm to whatever things they love, because that is what he did. He caused harm to whatever things Kathy loved. He didn't want Kathy to die, but if Kathy hadn't died, again the poisoning that happened to Kathy did unfold with Linton, because it is very suspicious that as soon as Linton married Catherine Linton, and that way Linton got some property of Catherine Linton as her husband, and Linton was Heathcliff's son with Isabella. So some property of Edgar came to Heathcliff via marrying Isabella. Some property came via his son now marrying Edgar. So all the property that almost 80-90% of the property of Edgar went away to Heathcliff as a result of these marriages. But as soon as Linton died, Linton married Catherine, a few months later only he died. So which is very highly suspicious. It is very highly possible that he could have been slow poisoning Linton for a long time to keep him always in a sickness and poor health status. And then, knowing that, what makes his son really sick is very easy for him to test out on that person. And this is the level antisocial personalities behave. And this is the level at which I have experienced antisocial personality people's poisoning. And that's why I understand what happens when slow poisoning is being done to someone. When someone manipulates a situation in such a way that they have manipulated you so much, they know that this much poison if I give you, you will be sick or drowsy. This much poison if I give you, you will now sleep longer. And anyone who has already tested all this, they will also now test. And in my covert manipulative abuse related videos, I've talked about some of these experiences with just one person, but I have had actually repeating experience with multiple people related to this topic. So but I have only discussed one person's, because that person's explanation was very easy to give, and the shortest easily narratable incidents. That's why I gave that example. But that was not my most toxic poisoning example. So with that person who is toxically now poisoning, if he was poisoning Linton, it is, he knows how much Linton gets impacted by the chemical he's using to poison, or a cocktail of chemicals he's using. And being a father, he can always, give him medicine and say, drink this will make you feel better. And while, he's giving something that will indeed make him feel better, but it has a cocktail of something that might be also slowly deteriorating his health in other ways. So this is what a very cold, calculating person, manipulative person is capable of doing. And because his main goal throughout the books were to get the property. So he got the property then as soon as Linton dies, right? So that's why it is very necessary to ask these questions. Why did all these people so easily die? And he had a good and these people, they do have, people say that antisocial personalities or narcissistic personalities do not have understanding, they don't have emotional quotient. What they don't have is, they emotionally don't feel anything, but they do have emotion. So emotional quotient is missing, but emotional intelligence is not missing. They understand emotions of other human beings very easily. That's why they are very good confidence artists, very good, easily able to magnetize people to them. So they have high level of emotional intelligence. They just do not have empathy or emotional quotient to understand the consequences, spiritual consequences and real life consequences of the choices they are making. Or even if they understand it, they just decide that my soul is not saved, I will continue doing it. But it doesn't work like that with God, and which is something that their soul has to navigate. But the other people who are suffering in their hands, they have to navigate the things I am trying to talk about in these videos. Where if you want to ascend through a narcissistic abuse, you have to go through first realizing that abuse was there. Second, you can't deny the fact that if someone is poisoning you, they are poisoning you. If someone is abusing you, they are abusing you. You can't sit and say that I was not getting poisoned, I was not getting abused. You have to realize that. Then only you can ascend to the next level. If I don't, like Catherine died without knowing that Heathcliff might have poisoned her, but her life review would have shown her that Heathcliff has poisoned you. Isabella might have died. All of these people who died without knowing that they were poisoned, their life review shows that he has poisoned them. And now in the next life, they might be the witnesses. Like even if Catherine doesn't marry Edgar in the next life, not Edgar, Heathcliff in the next life, Catherine might end up being his, if not his wife, she could have in another life been his sister. And he would have been given an opportunity that as her sister, can you forgive her and can you not poison her? So and for her, knowing his past life history is also important in that life, because he's in a test, he's on a spiritual test in that life to see, has he learned the lesson from the last life? Has he really healed himself in some ways? This might be his third life with Catherine, and in the first life, while he was intensely just selfishly wanting Catherine, can he in this life not want her selfishly? What will he do if Catherine rejects him in this life? Like let's say Catherine, being his sister, marries some other man, and there is a test of loyalty that Catherine has to do in that lifetime. Will he be okay with her sticking to her husband now in that life, because she's just his sister, she's not his wife or girlfriend? So will he be able to show her unconditional love and be okay with her, being loyal to her husband than him? And there could also be in another life, she has to choose between two narcissists, the loyalty between a narcissistic brother and a narcissistic spouse. Who does she choose? All of these will be Catherine's test of ascension related things, and certain things she has to leave when it's a choice between two narcissists. You might have to leave that experience, releases to God, because at that time you are between a devil and the deep sea kind of a experience. So these are all the challenging experiences someone who has some deeper spiritual work to do has to go through first. And I'm narrating my tale because without going through these things, the essence of these things will not come to you. The solution for these things can't come to you if I don't accept first what went wrong with my life, where I was karmically responsible for doing things that led to certain things manifest wrongly in my life, and where someone else has to take the accountability for the harm that was manifesting in my life. I hope this was making sense. Anyone has questions, comments, wants to investigate this in any deeper manner, either get in touch with me, put some comments here, so that we can open these topics up for some more further discussions related to these topics. Thank you very much. Have a great day.